Hello and welcome to the Big Apple School Podcast, the weekly English show where we speak about everything under the sun. The major goal of the show is to help you improve your English and, of course, learn something new. My name's Katja, I'm your host, and today with me...
I'm Gary.
And...
Benjamin.
Dear listeners, you know, we're doing our best to be as useful to you as possible, and we would love to get some feedback about it. So you can subscribe to our pages on Apple, Yandex, Google, or any platform where you listen to our podcast and let us know what you think about our show. You can tell us what you like or dislike. You can rate and review our podcast, give us stars, leave some comments, ask questions, and even send your ideas about next episodes. It won't take much time or effort, but it will help us a lot to become even better. To be the best. So
the premier podcast of all podcasts.
Wow.
Anywhere.
That's very ambitious.
We're going to take on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that punk.
That punk.
Wimp puke. Right, just wait until Joe hears about that.
Right. He's like, oh no, competition.
Yeah.
How can I handle it? Well, but the way we're going to do it is we're going to talk about transport. But wait, haven't we already?
Oh, yes, we have.
So why?
I believe we have, yes.
Then why are we here?
Because I can't get enough of transport.
That's
Well.
actually the only reason why we're doing it. So, but let's remember the last episode, last time that we talked about transport. So can you tell us what exactly we talked about? Gary, that's another memory check over here.
Okay.
So what did we discuss last time?
Well, I think we talked, it was also about transportation, but I think it ended up being about what, automobiles
Yeah,
mostly?
we ended up
Yeah,
talking
I
a lot
think-
about cars and driver's licenses. And
Yeah, and then only at the end of the podcast, we're like, oh yeah, right, there are other types of transport. Let's talk about planes. But yeah, I think we talked about cars mainly. So that's why today we can...
See, I did good, right?
Yeah.
Another test. That's 2 tests.
Check.
2 aces. Ace both of them. 2 straight A's so far. Okay.
I'm going to check next time, that we have a podcast together.
Okay. I'm just going to remember it this way, maybe.
So dear listeners, feel free to send comments in the comment section, asking Gary different questions about the past. We're checking his memory,
Right.
making sure he's okay.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, and since we spoke about mainly cars last time, let's talk more about planes today and other types of transport that we didn't even mention last time. So, and I think Benjamin over here is a huge fan of aviation
yeah, I can't get enough of planes. It's, yeah.
Oh, okay. And can I interrupt here before we even start? I want to know where does your interest in this subject come from? How did that?
I've been really lucky as a kid. I grew up in Brazil and I flew a lot when I was younger. And
Where were you flying from?
flying places, for instance, from Sao Paulo to London, sometimes to the States. So I was really lucky. I got to go on a lot of planes when I was younger, and I still fly occasionally. And I've just always been fascinated with flying and the mechanics of such huge machines, and it just fascinated me.
Mm-hmm. I love aviation too, but mostly for the reason that some family members were in aviation. So I have an uncle who used to be first a flight attendant for like 15 years.
Cool.
And he used to show us, like all the things he brought from other countries. And, growing up in Yakutia, you were shocked about, the very idea of there being other countries, You live on a stranded island, basically, cut from the world with the trees and taiga and whatever.
Which airline did he fly for?
Yakutia.
Yeah, I know. So he flew on the Boeing 737s, I believe.
You're a nerd.
I'm such a nerd. Yeah, no. But Yakutia, I believe they used to have the old Tupolevs as well. But then Russia outlawed them, I believe.
It might be so.
I believe they're still only used for military purposes now, but previously they were normal civil aviation staples.
I've flown on them.
Oh, cool. Tell me, can you remember which ones?
No, I can't. Not to that degree. I'm sure I've flown on them. TUs and the ILs, right?
Yeah.
That was what used to fly. That was,
Mm-hmm.
it was before Boeings were kind of a new thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then some of my family worked, at the airport, but not flying. And then my dad worked at the airport his whole life for 30 years, but he was...
Oh, really?
how do you call people who just like, load the plane and then take the cargo off?
So was he a load master or was he was a baggage assistant?
Handler. We say baggage handlers. Yeah.
But what if it's not baggage?
I guess
like
you would
what?
say a load master, maybe.
A load master. I love
think
the
so,
I love,
yeah.
I love
Load
the
master. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
be that, yeah.
because they didn't only
That sounds positively Russian.
Yeah, because they didn't only
Yes,
deal,
right.
with the luggage itself, but sometimes, they would have to load, different devices, furniture, horses.
Cool.
Once they had, they had to take a horse off the plane and, they were in big boxes. And the thing is that, the moment you put the, you try to hold, this cage maybe, and the horse tried to kick the hands. So it was very dangerous. So, but yeah, we heard a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And since he spent his whole life, working with the planes, so inside the planes.
They call in general, everybody that's working there, they call it ground crew.
Ground crew, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So being because he was also a driver, so
Yeah,
and being
it's
the
just-
ground crew, first it affected his hearing at some point because
Yeah.
you can imagine,
Yeah.
you work with the engine on, and because of that he knew all the the makes of the plane, the types of them. So, and Yakutsk is a small town, so whenever you just whenever there's a plane flying, you can see it pretty well and you can hear it because it's a tiny town. This is what I miss here actually. So when we would be having dinner and there would be a plane flying, you just look out at the windows like, Boeing 747 to Moscow. A little bit late today, but okay.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's why I got to love, the planes. And I was like, how can you remember all these things? And sometimes he would say, Горбатый полетел. And like the humpback is flying. I'm like, what does that mean? And he explained it to me, that the plane had, it looked as if it had a, like a humpback.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so can you tell us a little bit about the history of aviation? Do you know how it all started? I mean,
Well, technically, the people who kicked it all off were these two brothers called the Wright brothers. And maybe, Gary, you might know a little something about this.
maybe you might know them. You remember meeting them?
Yeah, I was very young. But
Well, no, this was back in...
Wilbur and Orville, Uncle Wilbur, we called him, and
Well, it was back in 1904, so it was a long time ago. Maybe,
I was,
don't
like
know.
I said, I was very young. I didn't say I was
Maybe.
old at the time. I was
In my 20s,
I was
right?
in my 20s. Yeah,
There's
It's
a
in my
debate.
prime.
There's a debate as to whether it happened. Well, actually, they took off in Kitty Hawk in North Carolina,
I think
but weren't they from Ohio?
they were from Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is where there's a big Air Force base.
So that's why you know them, because you grew up in Ohio. And they
And
went
we'd
to your
go down
school
in the horse and buggy to visit Uncle Wilbur and Orville. Yeah.
But I believe there were many pioneers attempting to make the first flight, and the Wright brothers were not particularly. I mean, they weren't physicists necessarily. I don't think they were physicists. They were bicycle mechanics.
Right, as opposed to physics.
Okay, that puts,
That's
And-
kind
I
of.
wouldn't trust them then,
Yeah, and they put all these physicists and
But
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
shame.
so, but the plane that they made, it didn't look like the planes we know now, right? So it was not the one that you can go inside and sit in a nice chair. But what was it like?
Well, to explain it in easy word, it was just like a double-decker wing kind of aircraft, if you understand what I mean. There were two sets of wings
Oh, okay.
above each other. And the flight only lasted for something like 12 seconds, but it was still pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
For that time.
Yeah, it
for
was.
that-
How far was it? It was like 100 yards? 100?
Yeah, it wasn't particularly
100
far,
meters or
but
something.
it was enough to capture the world's attention, obviously.
Yeah, well, they were tinkerers. The 19th century was into the early 20th. Ordinary people we say tinker is somebody that works with their hands and takes tools and makes new mechanisms. That's what they were, and they did a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
So how did it develop from there?
Well, from there, I guess the American military must have caught on to it somehow.
Like we have a flying thing. Ooh.
Yeah.
So it all started in the US then. So all
And France. I mean, other people, of course, tried to make it happen. It's not like it was just the Wright brothers and they were the godfathers of aviation, but they were the first to get things going. And then from there, obviously the military took over, and then I believe in World War One,
they were
aircraft. So World War One, so before the 1920s, it was, what was it, 1914 to 1918? Yeah. So by then they were aircraft.
Yeah, they were active in. There were aces, they were
aces,
dog fights, the fights in the air,
but it was mostly planes with limited capacity, for like 1-2 people, not cargo planes that we can imagine. So
no, it was later. Yeah.
So
that was in the 30s, I believe, that started happening.
And if I'm not mistaken, sometime after that, like several decades after that, there was a Zeppelin, some kind of there were Zeppelins. So do you know anything about that?
Like the big balloons?
Well, they were a kind of a balloon.
I believe it was
full of gas.
Yeah, they were functioning on hydrogen, I think.
Hydrogen, yeah.
Well, so it flew from then Nazi Germany to the States, I believe.
I think they did that, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a cross-Atlantic.
They were capable, and they were quite luxurious. They were supposed to be maybe the future of aviation, but then they weren't.
Yeah.
Because hydrogen gas is very explosive.
Yeah, I know that, people had a lot of, hopes about them. They thought they can fly further than the planes they had at the time. And they can carry more people and more cargo. So, they had a lot of hopes about that. But I think it was all over after the 1930s, the catastrophe with
there was the Hindenburg disaster. Yeah, it's just so spectacular. There were photographs. It was live radio. There's a famous radio clip of.
Oh, really?
Because it was an event. The Zeppelins coming in and going to land and just sort of preparing to just have a big celebration, and the thing goes up in these horrible flames, and the guy, the broadcaster's weeping and just total emotion in his voice because he can't believe
I
what's happening.
I wouldn't want to.
It's like watching
hear that.
It's like watching the Challenger.
Oh, that would be very tough to hear.
Terrible. And when you have a thing like that happen, you aren't going to. I forget who was on that. It was probably. Notable people. And
because it must have been really expensive, so not really available to the mere folks. So simple people,
right? But simple people,
And did everyone die in the catastrophe?
Oh, absolutely, everyone.
Yeah, it was
died.
a huge flame. It was a huge fireball. There was no way people could survive that.
I think this is one thing that put fear into people's minds. In general, a lot of people are afraid of flying, especially, after seeing all the videos about catastrophes, even though technically airplanes are the safest transport.
Right.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
So, but let's say my best friend, she has a phobia. So she's terrified of flying. So every single time she has to fly, she's like, promise that if I die, you'll bring my dog back to Russia. It's like, you're not going to die. Promise me. I'm like, okay, I promise that should anything happen, I'll take care of your dog. So she has to take some kind of the pills or something like that prescribed by the doctor. So
does she just take a lot of Valium before the plane and?
Well, I'm not sure what exactly she takes, but whatever it is prescribed by a doctor, so totally legal.
Okay, good.
Right, this is a family
no
podcast
illegal.
We're not recommending illegal ways
Absolutely not.
of handling air flight. Yeah.
But yeah. So can you remember any of the big plane crashes?
Oh, there were loads. I mean, where should we start with? I mean, there's so many. There were obviously, I believe at any moment there are thousands of planes in the sky at any given moment. Obviously, there has been a decline given the whole COVID situation.
Well, of course.
But nonetheless, there are still thousands of planes in the sky as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So, but every day, or well, not every day, but every few days, there is at least an incident. Not necessarily whereby people die, but
people rarely die. I think they went. I think maybe it was only in the United States, but I think they went whole years with no accidents.
Good job.
It's really dependable. I don't think that was global, but
Yeah, they say that in general, when there is an accident, it's like 90% of surviving, like 90% chance of surviving it, unless it's like a huge catastrophe when the airplane, let's say, falls into the ocean. Then, yeah.
Well, speaking of falling, so for an example of a huge aviation incident, there was a flight between, it was an Air France flight between Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Paris.
When was it?
Yeah, I remember that.
I think it was 2014. So maybe I'm wrong, but it was
Okay, so not too long ago.
Not too long ago, and it was a very advanced. It was an Airbus A330, so that's a very advanced aircraft, and I believe it's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to use really technical words that nobody is going to need, but the first officer or the co-pilot, he was left in charge of the plane. I believe the pilot went for a nap or something, and it was the dark of night and they were flying over the Atlantic Ocean, and for some reason the first officer had not been monitoring the altitude, and before he realized it was too late, and they collided with the ocean. Somehow he disengaged the autopilot. And the plane just gradually drifted down, and it was nighttime, so you had no visual reference of the ground, and the plane just hit the ground.
Is that the one where they overrode so much of the actual aviation that it's automatic now? It's computerized. The pilots are really only involved at landing and
exactly.
Which is why it's so dependable, because the machines are better than people are.
Yeah. Well,
I think he overrode. Did they investigate?
Yeah, by accident or something. I mean, it happened in Russia too. There was a flight between, I believe it was Moscow and Hong Kong. And this was a older Airbus. It was the A310, if anyone knows what that is.
I know what that is. I used to fly on those from Yakutsk to Novosibirsk.
Oh, cool. So I think S7 had them or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, the captain allowed his son into the cockpit, and it's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But the captain. So in cockpits you have the autopilot
Tumbler,
dashboard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a dashboard whereby you can choose the heading. So the heading is the direction you're going in, and he allowed the child. So the plane was flying on autopilot, but he wanted to let his son have the impression that he was controlling the plane. So he allowed his son to sit in the seat, and the son took control of the yoke. The yoke is like the steering wheel. And he changed the heading setting and said, turn the plane right. So he thought it was turning right. No problems. It was all okay. But what the pilot didn't realize was, because I believe he was new to that aircraft, I can't remember, was that if you hold the yoke in a position for a certain amount of time, the autopilot disengages without an alarm. And the kid, he thought the plane was just turning, but then all of a sudden the plane reached what is called bank angle. Bank angle is like the maximum angle that a plane can turn at, and then before they knew it, the G forces were getting too big, so the pilot couldn't return to his seat, and the co-pilot managed to get the plane out of a crazy dive, but then he just lost control and it crashed into the ground.
Did people survive?
No one survived. I mean, at least the crash would have been instant and everyone would have died immediately. But it would have been terrifying to go down. I
remember, speaking of Airbus A310, I remember in 2006 there was an air crash. At that time, S7 was called Sibir.
Yeah.
So it was they had a different name. And there was a horrible air crash, involving that Airbus. And everyone was shocked at the time, because it was, I think, the first big air crash that people were talking about. So, and about 1.5 months later, my family and I, so we had to fly the same airline, same type of the same type of Airbus. And we're just sitting and okay, everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. But still, it was really stressful flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be, sure.
I mean, it's a very safe aircraft. It really is. It's
in general, planes are really safe, because we know,
safe,
and we remember about air crashes, but we don't take into account how many dozens of thousands of flights have safely come back, or reached their destination.
I heard something really funny, that you're more likely to die in your living room chair being kicked to death by a donkey than you are
I thought you were going to say, because usually people, use the argument saying like you're more likely to die on your way to the airport.
That's true.
I'm sure that's true.
Plane,
That's absolutely
I
true.
remember I asked my uncle, like, aren't you afraid of flying? And he's like, well, there's not a single plane that hasn't come back to the earth. Like, well, you're not wrong.
Well, he's got his point.
Like, yeah. So, but
still.
Yeah. So, and do you happen to know, so when there is an air crash, so usually people who investigate the crash later, they use the information, the data from the black box. So do you know anything about the black box? So what is it? How does it function?
Well, black boxes are constructed out of really durable materials so that they can survive crashes, although they don't always survive crashes.
Mm-hmm.
And every major airliner has to have a black vault. Yeah, it's usually stored somewhere.
Which is how they know what happened with the kid being in the cockpit and the co-pilot.
Because I think it records everything
exactly.
that is happening in the cockpit. It has data about every single process on a plane.
Yeah, so you have the data recorder and the voice recorder. The two separate boxes, but they're in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when there's a crash, if the data box is not, or if the boxes have not been completely destroyed, they emit a signal usually for like 30 days whereby an emergency squad can retrieve the box. But 30 days isn't forever. So sometimes if a plane goes down in the ocean, you can't exactly go and find a black box.
What I remember what surprised me about them is that they're not black and they're not boxes.
Yeah, they're usually
It's all
red.
a lie. Because they're round and they're bright red, so that they're easy to spot.
Yeah.
There was a cool episode actually. Yes, I am going to tell here about another podcast, but there is a podcast called Stuff You Should Know. It's two men that explain, how things work. Let's say how radio works, and they had an episode on how black boxes work. Well, there are some, technical terms, but they try to explain it as, in as simple words as they can. So, yeah, I remember I was listening to that episode. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
They're round and red. And after that, I Google, I'm like, oh, they are round and red.
Right. How dare they? Yes, right. Should be black and square. What's the matter with them?
Yeah. Yeah. So, in speaking of flights, well, Ben, you've traveled a lot. Gary, you've had plenty of cross-Atlantic flights. So how do you deal with these long-haul flights? I mean, because it's okay to, let's say, have like a 2-3 hour flight. But what about those long 9, 10, 11-hour flights? How do you deal with them?
How long was your flight from Rio to
I mean,
London?
it was pretty long. It was Sao Paulo to London is about 11 and a half hours.
In the air.
Yeah, it's pretty long, but there are longer flights out there. You have Singapore to New York, which is 19 hours.
Oh, God.
Wow. That's
Wait, do
rough.
they have like enough fuel and it's like a non-stop flight?
Yeah, it's a non-stop flight. It's only they only started recently. They use an Airbus A350, so it's not the big double-decker one, but it's a really long distance.
Because I thought that it's not possible to have such long flights because you would, need too much fuel with you, and like it's.
No, it's possible now.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Singapore to New York, longest flight, I believe, in the
I
world.
hope I'll never have to take this, of course, because 19 hours. No, thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
On
it's
a
one thing
plane.
if you're in business class, that's okay. But if you're in economy class, then you have to.
I don't know. I think
Deal
in
with your
general,
bad neck.
that's not something I would like to experience in one go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
No fresh air.
That's like too long, but
Yeah. It's a schlep.
yeah, as they say, it's
Yeah.
Oh, we discussed this
Yeah,
word
yeah,
not
yeah.
long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Schlap.
Anyway.
Yeah,
yeah.
wait, so Gary, so you know the word schlep?
I
yeah?
do know the word schlep.
Okay, cool. So you see, it's not
Yeah, well,
completely.
It's still amusing to me,
Yeah.
the way it
Schlep
sounds.
is mainly mainly a verb. You schlep something.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember you told us it's from Yiddish, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
guess it
Yiddish.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
No, of course
Yiddish.
it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah. You schlep something. Like if you're dragging
Yeah.
something up the stairs, right? You
Yeah.
schlepped it.
So wait, what was your longest flight?
It probably would be that one. Yeah.
11 and a half hours. Okay, Gary?
It's always the same. I think it's basically 9 hours from Moscow to New York.
11.
Is it 11?
The Aeroflot one?
Yeah, the Aeroflot one.
11.
All right, 11.
I wonder how long
The longest flight I've been on is 11 hours.
Same.
11, yeah.
Yes.
I wonder how long the one from
York.
Moscow to Los Angeles is. I guess that is.
I don't think there is one.
No, there is.
There is?
Yeah, I remember
would be-
being. I
well,
saw
that-
14 and a half hours, I would guess. Because it
Oh,
wouldn't go.
It would be
go
much longer than that because if it's 11 hours to New York, it's
but-
3,000 miles across.
But it doesn't go from that
so
side. It'll go
okay,
through
okay.
Asia. So
So it
across
goes-
Russia and then there. So it'll go the opposite.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I'd have to do the math on that just by time
I think
zones.
it's around 14, 15 hours then.
Because I remember being at LAX and seeing an Aeroflot there. LAX
Oh,
is
wow.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles,
Airport.
yeah.
Difference is, let's see, there's
Gary's doing math.
Yes, it's pretty painful.
So, yeah,
I bet it wouldn't be. I don't know that would be more air miles. Would that be more air miles than Moscow to New York?
Okay, we're going to check this out after the
Yeah.
podcast then.
Of course,
Because
Los Angeles more south as well, but because it's got
I
another.
mean, the Pacific Ocean is huge.
it is.
So
it
is the-
But perhaps-
yeah, you can do it by time zones.
Perhaps,
So.
yeah, it would go over.
So,
I'd say
so
maybe-
Moscow is GMT plus
Three? Yeah.
and LA would be
GMT -8, I think it is. Yes, -8, yeah.
-8.
15.
Yeah.
So 15, that would make something like
15 hour
hours.
time difference.
But
so-
also, I just don't think it can be anything like 16, 17, or 18 because I don't think there are planes that can fly that long in Aeroflot. So that we have.
Yeah.
So, and this long flight, which is 19 hours, I think it's more of an exception. So, because on average, the longest flights tend to be like 14, 15 hours.
yeah, that it might be like 14, 15 hours to LA.
Yeah, it could be.
So, yeah, 11, 11, 11 and a half. So, how do you deal with that? 11 hours.
Well, try to not sit in the middle seat.
Yeah, exactly. Aisle
Yeah,
seat.
try
yeah.
to sit on an aisle seat or a window seat.
Which one are you? Which one do you prefer?
I'm aisle. Yeah,
Aisle?
I actually like, but I mean, to be honest, I love looking out the window. But
I'm
then
only
again-
window seat. I always
Yeah.
buy, I don't
can't-
care about
yeah.
that. I will always pay extra, but I will buy, a window seat.
Is there a particular reason, just so you like looking out the window? Or?
I don't care about the window and I like looking out of it, but usually I have my pillow with me, so I just lean on the wall.
right.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I can sleep, for a longer time. Because if it's aisle, I can't really, stretch my legs because then they will be in the,
Yeah, in the
in the
aisle
way.
yeah.
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 So-
Well, I just do that, but I got to be on the aisle because of leg room. It's everything else is pretty painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
The
is
word aisle is actually really funny because I remember explaining
Just
to
spell,
someone.
how is that spelled?
Yeah,
it's
someone asked
spelled
me-
like it sounds. Yeah.
Someone said to me, "Что такое проход на английском?" And I said, aisle, but he was like, "Isn't it?" It was like, yeah,
ISIL? Yeah.
ISIL,
ISIL.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Right. An
So-
ISIL seat. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, leg room, so long haul flights are the only flights where I'm ready to pay extra for the extra leg room and the window seat. Because otherwise, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, I don't pay extra. Right. Just period. Yeah, right. Yes. Torture me. Right. Just give me the best price.
11 hours. No, I have a whole, set of rules maybe. So a lot of things that help me, make this 11 hours really comfortable, more or less. Because I always have, like a bottle of water, a moisturizer, because the air is so dry, because it's basically what it circulates, in the airplane. There's no fresh air.
Yeah.
So then to relieve this, like food swelling, because I once made a mistake of having really tight sneakers. God, that was so painful. I had to just take them off and I was like, oh my God, my feet. So I always make sure to have those, warm, loose, warm socks with me. So that I take off my shoes, put on these socks. So I'm like, okay, comfort. So
Okay. And off to the restroom.
No. Well, of course not. I wouldn't go to the restaurant wearing my socks. Oh God, Gary. Why would you even suggest that?
Time to go to the restaurant.
Ew. Ew.
So you just dress and undress for each trip.
Well, yeah, I mean, 11 hours is like what? 3 trips to the bathroom.
So, I mean, what is the etiquette with socks on planes? Do people take off their shoes on planes? In your opinion, what is the correct thing to do?
Okay, I was once flying with some people who took off their shoes, and I had a feeling that they hadn't washed their feet for like 2 months. So I think in this case, it would be a bad thing to do. So let's say when I put on my socks, I have shoes that are, aired. So I'm pretty sure, I don't add to the
so
to
considerate.
the aroma.
Such a model flyer. Yes.
That me? Yes.
Yes. Right. Yes.
I'm not even going to deny that. Yes.
Okay. She
So-
takes the praise graciously. Yes.
I mean, what else? Something to pass the time, of course, like a book or something like that. Because if it's a day flight,
Yeah, it's
you can't
mainly
really
about the
sleep.
time.
So, and I mean, because it's not only about the flight itself. So let's say I usually travel with a pillow, and not the one that goes around your neck, but a normal size pillow. So, and I remember when I was flying from Boston, just, an officer just looked at me like, ma'am, are you traveling with that pillow? Like, why? I said, look, I have 25 hours of planes and airports ahead of me. I don't care what people think. 25 hours, I need it. Best decision of my life, really. I was sleeping nicely. The only time when I couldn't do that was during the pandemic because, it's a pillow. So I'm like, ugh, okay. And it was the worst flight. I couldn't sleep,
Wait, so you couldn't carry a pillow because...
You could.
Well, because you can imagine, like a pillow, I usually have it with me. But during the pandemic, I thought like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable enough to have it, in public spaces and whatnot. So...
Really?
I don't know. I felt, it was last year when everything just started. I was paranoid and panicky.
Wait. So you're paranoid about taking the pillow on board a plane?
I was last year when the pandemic started. I thought, what if I somehow, get the COVID because of it?
Because of the pillow?
The pillow absorbs the COVID, you mean?
Well,
Yes.
remember,
They've done a lot of
Benjamin, it was
research on
March.
this.
It was March 2020. We didn't know anything about COVID yet. We just had panic in the air.
Those pillows are just massive COVID catchers. They just
They might be.
well, they could be. Yeah, no, at that time.
I mean,
yeah.
March 2020, like people were washing bags of chips in their sink after going to the supermarket. So, don't judge me,
Okay. All right.
please.
All right. See, there was a good reason, Ben. It's
So wait,
not-
I usually take my pillow and deodorant because usually when I go to the US, it's like 23, 25 hours on planes and airports. So it's a long time.
It takes me it takes me exactly the same time each time because I do the same route. It's 24 hours from the time that I get up on the morning that I'm leaving till the time that I'm there because I go to Florida from New York. So that's another.
Oh, where you have family?
Yeah, that's where my mother lives. Yeah,
Oh,
so
fair enough.
it's an added thing with a layover and.
Well, I think
all
in
those things.
averagely it's like 24 hours because, you spend some time in airports as well. So let's say Novosibirsk, Moscow, then you have a layover, at least a couple of hours.
Yeah,
You need
right.
at least a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Then you cross the border, you need at least 2-3 hours to cross the border, because you can't be, well, maybe you can do it faster, you being
Right,
a citizen.
Sometimes, well, it's variable. Sometimes it can be surprisingly long, but
'Cause,
usually it's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it can take hours and hours and hours.
Wow.
And they would ask
that would
you-
make it really tough to schedule your flight. Right?
Exactly. So that's why every time I have, a layover in, let's say, New York City or, the first, the first airport, the first
when
place.
you do the border,
Yeah. I'm like, I need at least 3.5 hours.
Wow.
At least. Because I remember we had the very first time when I went to the US. So my flight was Novosibirsk, St. Petersburg, 8-hour layover there. And Fulbright they got us tickets, so we didn't get to choose. So St. Petersburg, Amsterdam, Minneapolis, Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Wow.
35 hours in
That's
total.
a terrible flight. Yeah.
That's long.
35.
That's insane.
35 hours. That's bad.
And we had a 3-hour stop, I think, or like 3.5 hour stop in Minneapolis, but there were so many people. And they were asking us a lot of questions like, do you have anything to declare?
You did the border at Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. It was the first port of entry.
Oh, wow. What a weird place to come into.
So, well, we
I
didn't
wouldn't
get
even
to
think
choose.
they would. Yeah, well, sure. But I mean,
I've never been to Minneapolis.
I've driven through it. That's all. But
Well,
I mean,
let's just be thankful that we didn't have the first port of entry in Georgia, in Atlanta, because this is the biggest airport,
Yeah.
the busiest airport.
Yeah, I've gone through Atlanta
Yeah, they say it's the
giant number of times. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
it's okay. I mean, it's just, you got to take trains around the airport and all that stuff. But it's
One thing I can't understand is why JFK is such a bad airport. It's one thing I can't understand.
yeah.
I
New York
hate
is
it.
such a
Whenever
good
I can
city, it's
avoid flying
such a
through
bad
JFK, I
airport,
do
yeah.
that.
I don't mind JFK. I've gotten used to it. I've learned how to do it. What I sometimes do to make my connections is I've got to take. I lived in New York, so I know how to do this without it being a major production. But there's a domestic airport called LaGuardia.
Oh yeah,
also
yeah,
in New
yeah.
York. I actually lived for a couple of years near LaGuardia.
Oh, in Long Island,
I could have
yeah.
almost walked home, kind of. Not exactly, but I took a bus even from the airport. But I sometimes the connections are such that I come into JFK and then I got to go out of LaGuardia, and so I got to do another shuttle bus thing, which is another whole phase of it, which is okay, but it's terrible traffic between the two airports. And JFK is bad, and then LaGuardia, they're doing a major reconstruction. It's probably over by now, but I mean, it was bad just getting between airports. I almost missed a plane.
Oh God, no! Whenever I can, I try to avoid, having a stop at JFK, especially that being the first port of entry. To
I
US.
don't mind it. I've gotten used. I've learned the ropes, but it hasn't been redone in a long time. It was built in like the mid '60s.
Yeah.
What's the best airport you've been to, in your personal opinion?
I'd probably say, I think it was the one in Shanghai. That was a really good airport.
Ooh.
Wow, I bet that
Yeah.
would be a good.
That was a great airport.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be.
I mean, London Heathrow is actually a really good airport too. It's a pretty damn good airport. Yeah, especially Terminal 5.
I love it that you can actually take the tube from there. It's convenient. You don't have to wait
that's
for the
super when you
bus
can
or
do
something
that,
like that.
It is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's logical. I mean, I'm easily lost, at new places. So Heathrow, it was so easy to, find your way and do things. So I loved it. Even though I was terrified at first, I was like, there are so many of them. And I come to one terminal, but then, the tube station is at a different one. How do I get there? Panic, panic, panic. No, when I came there, I was like, oh, signs everywhere for people like me. I didn't get lost.
Yeah, when they do the signs, signage, as they say, makes a big difference, right? You can really make things, even complicated things, clear if you try. Or you can really mess it up and just make it preposterous, where you can't find anything. It can be either way. But I don't have too many airports where I felt like, wow, this is a great airport. Most American airports are older. And, the advantage of Chinese airports is they just built them,
Yeah.
They built them 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And
They're building a new building of Tolmachevo Airport in Novosibirsk right now.
Oh, really?
So another terminal. Yeah.
For next year.
I didn't realize.
Okay.
Because next year we're going to have...
Yeah, Tolmachevo, well, it's still it's sort of old and new mixed now, I mean, as it is, it's not great now, but maybe
No.
it's
the one,
changed so much, though, from when I first came.
The one thing I
goodness.
love... Oh, I can imagine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember I flew in when I first came to Novosibirsk. I had my luggage. I was coming from Magadan.
Oh yeah.
The sunny Magadan.
Sunny Magadan. And I had my luggage, and there was a separate baggage
Building.
Yeah, baggage building.
Oh, like they used to have that in Yakutia. Can you imagine like -50 and you waiting outside?
Yeah. Well,
I have a story about that.
They had the whole thing, and I can remember I'm looking at my bags, and some guy's got his eye on my bag, watching it go around this.
Yeah.
What do they call that thing?
Carousel, I guess.
Carousel,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, it's going around this carousel, and I'm outside. It was a hot day. It was July. It was about this time, a long time ago. And just, I'm thinking, man, what if that guy goes for my suitcase? You know what I mean? And he didn't go for my suitcase, but I was really, but just the whole way of having it come into this unheated building, with the doors open, unair conditioned, hot July day. I got a lot of bags. I don't even know. I've never been to Novosibirsk. I didn't know anything about it. I barely knew where I was going to go, how I was going to do any of it, and I'm dressed like an idiot. And
which year roughly was this?
This was 1996.
Oh, right. So yeah, when
25 years right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Celebrating, woohoo!
Yeah.
Applause.
Well, maybe not celebrating, but yes, we're observing, we're counting.
Okay.
Simply calculating here. We'll put the celebration on hold, but no, anyway, celebrating. Yeah, anyway, it was, and it was quite a thing. But it was okay, and I got my bag, and
One thing I love about Tolmachevo, airport a lot is that you don't have, to take your shoes off, to take your belt off. You just go through that cabin. 15 seconds, you're done.
That rigorous test. Yes, right.
But,
yes.
But
right.
all the other airports,
they catch one or another terrorist each and every day using that careful testing.
Careful screening.
Yes, good screening. That's right. That's right. It's like screen on a window that's, like a meter. Each block is a meter across. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's so convenient though, especially in winter when, in all the other airports you have to take off your coat, the scarf, the belt, the shoes.
Yeah,
and
it's a complete pain, which is another part of the joy of the JFK experience, by the way, is when you've got these long lines going into
Oh, you mean the joy, as
joy,
in...
ironic, put air quotes there. And it's just this long line and...
Oh, God, yeah.
And...
Yeah, that's why Novosibirsk Airport is convenient in that way.
And then there was the time I was in the middle of the line, or I was actually toward finally getting into where they're going to inspect the baggage, and I get paged.
What does that mean?
Means there's announcement over the.
Oh, like please proceed
airport.
to.
Yeah, passenger Gary Lucas report immediately to this.
Oh, I thought you were talking about those old pager devices.
Yeah, but this was last year.
Oh, okay,
or the year before, or whatever. I mean, it was recently, and I'm in the middle of this thing, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this? And it had to do with they had somebody new at the desk that looked at my documents, and they hadn't parsed the documents correctly, so they weren't sure if I was qualified for the flight or whatever. So I had to get out of there some way. Ask what it was, get out of there, make my way through.
And then get back and
get back and
start all over again.
Yeah, go back into the line,
Yeah.
There's another reason to allow a lot of time before.
Yeah, because you never know how many people are going to be there.
Or what might go wrong,
So let's say in Boston Airport, let's say they have several terminals depending on the airline, but let's say when you're flying with international terminal, it's one terminal and all of the people come through like 2 or 3 offices, and then there are 2 or 3 lines, so it's so long. I usually spend like 1 hour and a half just, getting through all that.
It's bad.
So what about low-cost airlines? Do you often fly with those?
Or around Europe, of course, yeah. And also I flew on Pobjeda to get here
How was
too.
that?
Well, the seats didn't recline. They didn't go back. And it was a night flight. So I thought, that was a bit uncomfy.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But, it got me from A to B.
Well, that's basically the goal of all the low-cost airlines. Comfort? Was cheap, never better.
It was cheap. It cost me £35. What's that? 3,500.
From where to where?
From Moscow to Novosibirsk.
Wow.
So that's £35.
Damn.
That's cheap.
That'd be about
look, I got...
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe it's cheaper,
Yeah, cheaper than that. Yeah.
One-way ticket.
Yeah, one way, yeah.
Because let's say I bought tickets with Pobjeda to St. Petersburg for the end of August. It's 15K return tickets. 15,000.
Round trip.
Yeah, but it's 15,000.
15,000 is
£150, yeah.
$200.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean, for America, that's all
look,
right.
he flew to Moscow for 3.5. For me, it's 7.5 one way.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Just.
Yeah, but I took a
still,
night
that's-
flight and it was a nasty time to fly. And they arrived
Yeah, I don't like them.
arrived
I
at
don't like
about, I think it was 6:30 in the morning.
This
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not bad. The typical Aeroflot flight, when it comes back, there's a flight that comes back. I think it gets in at like 5.
Yeah, which is
it's-
early.
AM?
Which is
Yeah.
5 a.m. Yeah, it's bad. You have to wait for the even.
I mean, it's 1 hour of waiting. Actually, the Airport Express, it starts running at 4:30 a.m. So, but if it's like 1 a.m., then it's either taxi or nothing else. But one thing about Победа,
Of course, taxi is so cheap now; it doesn't even matter, right?
well,
I mean,
in
really.
Novosibirsk.
Yeah, in
Maybe.
Novosibirsk, yeah.
So, but I have a question. So, how do they even manage to keep their prices so low? How does that work?
Well, for instance, in Europe, Ryanair or EasyJet, they will fly out of secondary airports. And they
So,
will
smaller airports, okay.
not necessarily smaller, generally
Less
smaller, but
convenient as
less
well.
convenient airports. So, for instance, if you fly out of London, you won't fly out of Heathrow or Gatwick, which
Not even Gatwick.
sometimes Gatwick, yeah, definitely EasyJet Gatwick, but Ryanair will fly out of Luton, if you know Luton.
No, I have never heard about
So
it.
Luton's this town just outside of London, and it's an airport town. But usually these airports charge lower landing and departure fees to the airline, so to entice them to come. So let's say if you fly to Florence in Italy, usually you will end up flying to Pisa, if anyone knows Pisa, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, because it's cheaper to fly there than it is to fly to the airport in Florence. So usually they will find alternatives, and of course they will not include food service on board and
No
charge
food,
extra.
no beverages, yeah.
And they'll do extra baggage charges. Also, I guess you've encountered the Победа, the back.
Some people...
The Победа baggage charge.
It's 20 kilograms is the limit. And when I was traveling over, I spent a whole week weighing my bag at home. So my mum thought I was crazy because I was weighing my bag
20.
every day. Yeah. And I got to the check-in desk and my bag was exactly 20 kilograms. And the check-in lady looked at me and she was just like, gave me this look as if I was lucky.
Because you never know.
Right there, they're ready to pounce. Yeah.
Like 20.0. She's like, respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right.
But you never know how they're going to react if you have like a little bit of extra. Because let's say sometimes it can be 21, or let's say you're allowed to have 23 and it's like 24. And some people say, well, okay, that's okay. Just go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 23.5. They're like, no, that's too much.
Yeah.
She's like, fine. And you have to take something out of it, put in your, carry on or something.
Yeah.
You know what I don't like about Победа? So the thing is that you're allowed to have,
as many things as there are to like about Победа.
Right.
There is just this one.
Just this one, of course.
You could even overlook it. I'm sure it's very small.
Uh-huh. So, but the thing is that they are very strict about carry on. So first of all, you can't have any plastic. You can't have any like plastic bags or paper bags. Nothing like that. They're not allowed. Then if it's a backpack, it can only be like a tiny backpack, the one you use in your daily life. But the thing is that how they measure the carry on.
Yeah.
So the thing that they use to measure when you check in and the one they use to measure when you board the plane are different.
Oh,
the one when they used
that's dirty. That's dirty.
It is because
cool.
my sister, let's say, last time she was flying with it, they checked it at the on a check-in desk, and it fit, so it was fine. But then when she was boarding the plane, they're like, "It's over the limit." She's like, "No, it's not," and they put it, and it didn't fit. So they're like, "Well, you have to pay for it as a luggage, and since it's late check-in, it's going to be 3,000."
Oh no!
She's like, "Excuse you?"
Oh no!
So
It's insane, yeah. But that's how they. Yeah.
That would be.
My
And you can
advice is
imagine-
to use an IKEA bag because the IKEA bag you can smush it down and you can.
depends on what you have inside.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and that's why people are just furious when they board a plane.
Yeah,
because they're made,
Yeah, well,
to
I
pay.
had my experience with this, and this was my fault. I have not done a lot of low cost, but I did do it one time. It was an Air Baltic. In fact, I think.
I know.
I think it was from London to. It was from London to some other. Was it from
Vilnius?
Yeah,
or,
from Vilnius or something. Yeah, it was some weird place. Not normal place.
Vilnius.
Yeah.
Some weird place.
Well,
what
you
is
know what I mean.
Lithuania?
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to offend our many Lithuanian listeners who we value,
Yeah.
right? Yes. But I had done. Here's what I did. I was in London. It's the only time I was in London, and I spent a couple of weeks there though. And I went to a charity shop,
Yeah.
Marie Curie.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And they had, it's a place, they raise funds for cancer research by selling things. And they had some Wedgwood, by Wedgwood manufacturer, it wasn't classic Wedgwood China. It was like crockery dishes. And it was like, I really liked the pattern. And so I said, I'm going to buy this whole thing. It was service for 4, big dinner plates and, this whole thing weighed a ton and so I bought this and I get to the airport and I don't realize that they are going to count the bags as one thing. And I was going to take this carry-on. I had a heavy carry-on largely with these dishes. And they say, well, and it's about the carry-on. They were going to do the 3,000 ruble equivalent or, like $100 or whatever it was. And so I ended up parting with almost the whole set.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was so angry.
I
was
imagine.
really ticked, but it's my fault. I mean, I shouldn't, I'm sure it was in the baggage,
the
the rules.
something.
You have to read that stuff, but I'd never had the experience before. The carry-on was sort of a freebie, but not in this case, like you're describing. And I had to, I don't remember if I I think I threw them into I literally walked the whole thing over, except for I kept one set, one of the 4.
Yeah.
And I probably should have just paid the difference. I probably should have paid the $100 and taken the rest of it. But anyway, it was like a bummer. It was a mega bummer.
Oh, wow.
And in they went. It literally into the he walked over to that thing, and I'm putting these, nice brand new crockery into this just trash along with everything else.
I know that sometimes, some of the low-cost airlines, they sell more tickets than there are seats on an airplane.
Yeah.
Because since they're non-refundable, there's always, a certain percent of passengers who will not show up, who have changed their mind or, for some other reason. So they sell more than there are seats. So that's how they manage. One of the ways they manage to keep their prices so low. Yeah. Have you ever flown with Spirit?
I've seen the yellow ones.
They look so fun, but I'm terrified of them.
Well, they're all Airbus planes. They're all safe planes. They're just low cost for America.
Yeah, I mean, because I heard so many stories about how they cancel the flights the last minute. They don't refund. They just change the time, the day.
Yeah, and I think the passengers are surly or something. It's like it can be sort of a human relations problem,
Yeah.
Because it's just like too little service or something, too.
Yeah, they usually have such tempting, prices. But I'm like, no, don't fall for that.
Well, America has significantly higher prices for flights than Europe does.
Well, maybe
Well, then Europe,
maybe
yeah.
Europe,
Well,
Compared to Russia?
Compare it now with Ryanair and all that stuff, but generally it's cheaper there in my experience than here.
Well, I've never flown, around Europe, but I heard about, the prices. But I compared to Russia, and compared to Russia, U.S. has fantastic
Yeah, that's
prices.
exactly right.
And I remember when I had my 3-week trip around the West Coast. So I got And I bought tickets for the end of December in October, so like 2.5 months before the flights. So my ticket from Washington, D.C. to Vegas was $45.
Oh, that's cheap.
Vegas, San
real
Francisco, $50.
Wow.
San Francisco, Portland, Oregon was like $75. And I thought, okay, $75.
Yeah, that's
And then I had
that's
to...
really cheap.
that's
yeah.
really cheap.
And then I had to go back
super cheap
to Washington, D.C. from Oregon. But it was bad timing, so I didn't plan well. So it was on Christmas Day, not Christmas Eve, which would be super expensive, but Christmas Day. And it was $200. And I thought, $200 after paying, $50 for a ticket. But then I thought, wait a second.
Yeah.
200 is like, at that time, it was like 12,000 rubles. I can't even get to, Yakutsk
Correct.
for that money. Pfft, it's
Correct.
fine. So, and then I realized that it's actually not much.
Yeah, at that point you've lowered your expectation there.
But then $45, $50, that was not Spirit, that was American Airlines, so not a low-cost airline.
yeah, well,
so
they're
it was-
competing with the low cost, though. That's how they're.
So, and I had no problem, no, delays or anything like that, except for my flight from DC to Boston, but that was another story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, if you can plan, if you can do your thing a couple of months ahead, you're fine. But what I hate about online ordering is the way that they float those prices. They are constantly changing those.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that. Tell me how much this costs and don't change the thing. It just feels like you're just going to be ripped off.
I believe you have to delete your cookies on your browser if
Is
you
that
want
what
to.
the- is that what you
because the
got?
cookies track your activity. And
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I believe that's
that
what you
would
have to
make
do.
sense.
I heard that,
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never got to actually check it, but they say that the best time is to buy the tickets on, I don't know why, but on a Tuesday, 5 weeks before the flight in the morning. So
Okay,
apparently
yeah.
that time is absolutely not popular for people to go and browse their tickets, so they try to lower the prices. Yeah, but I usually just have the, notifications when I know that I need that flight. So I just turn on the notification when the price goes down.
Yeah, well, if you're buying it 5 weeks ahead, then you're not in the total rip-off zone. But as soon as you get closer, then you're just saying, I'm desperate,
And sometimes it's something
I hate that. God.
not really noticeable. I mean, like, let's say in rubles, like 1,000 ruble, 500, 200. But when I was tracking the prices for Moscow-London flight in 2014, the difference was shocking because it was 15,000 return. Well,
round trip.
round trip.
You can say return, yeah.
So, but it was like 15. It was just one day. 22, 23. I was like, 22, 23, 35. And that was 35 for a long time. Then it was again 23. And I'm like, damn it, 23. It's finally, way cheaper. So when I asked my sister, like, can you lend me some money? She's like, yeah, sure. Tomorrow the tickets were like 40.
That's what I hate. They do that, and that's
23
intentional. Yeah.
and 40,000.
Yeah. That's gigantic. Yeah. That's a huge, ridiculous.
I think I ended up paying like 33,000
It's
for all the
nuts,
tickets.
Yeah. You're probably right. I mean, talk about something worth the podcast listen is clear your cookies,
Yeah.
Ben, you win the prize.
The most valuable information of the whole podcast, dear listeners.
Yes, right.
Clear your cookies.
Maybe of all the podcasts ever.
All 118 episodes.
Clear your cookies.
Clear your cookies, people. And because that's what they do is, I would game it by, I knew that if I looked at it once and I looked at it the next day, the price would be up. So I just need to determine that they're still flying and whatever this is, and then I'm going to buy the thing when I see it, because I know the next time they do it, they think they've got their hook in your mouth, and they're going to just play you and play you and play. That's evil. Can you imagine going to the market and you
Welcome to the capitalist world.
and using technology. So that's one of the things where the romance of flying isn't so romantic, where and even the experience isn't always that great. But anyhow.
What about other air transport, let's say? Have you ever flown on a helicopter?
No, I really want to,
Is
actually.
there anything else? There are
Never done
planes?
that.
Hot air balloons, yeah. I guess we talked about the Zeppelin before, but
Well, Zeppelin is Zeppelin. It's not hot air balloon.
Yeah, there's no more Zeppelins, I don't think. They're not doing anything with hydrogen gas. You know?
Yeah, I don't think they would.
Except maybe Jeff Bezos. He he's got his own hydrogen probably island or something.
And Richard Branson too. He's
probably doing
going up to
Zeppelins.
space too.
Is it the owner of Virgin Airlines?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Virgin, the whole company, because it's not.
It's not only airlines.
It's huge in England. In the UK, it's huge. There's so much.
I think it's like in 2 weeks that they're going to fly.
Is that soon? Yeah.
I think it's like really, really soon.
Boy,
have you heard about people signing the petition so that they don't come back to Earth?
Yes, I haven't heard that, but
people
I think
are
I'd
doing
sign
that.
just for them. Boy, you talk about something. You know, I don't think that that Bezos's airline, I don't think, or their thing, that they've ever flown anybody up.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Oh, you mean on that particular spacecraft?
On that Blue Origin.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about on that entire Blue Origin organization.
Well, you know what?
He's going to be the human
guinea pig.
But see, they don't go out of, from what I understand, they're not going that far out. They're just barely going into space and coming right back.
Just to see the Earth.
But I mean, this is a guy that's got, I think he's still the richest guy in the world. And can you imagine you're the proof test, you're the guinea pig, wow, that is preposterous. After they've done it 100 times, then you do it.
Yeah,
I
would like to discuss it in more detail, but actually we are planning on an episode about space, like a separate episode.
Cool.
So I'll have to wait and,
Okay, all right.
Gotta restrain yourself. Don't talk about space right now.
That's a teaser there.
It is. It is a little teaser.
Okay.
Do. Like they say, like, next episode.
That's right. Coming up.
yeah, that's the
right.
same.
That's right.
Coming up in one of the podcast episodes. What about water transport? Have you ever taken one?
Yeah, I've been on ferries before. So across the English Channel, you have ferries that go across.
How long does it take?
It's about an hour and a half. Actually, 3 hours. And also,
I mean, like to go from England to France.
Yeah, about 3 hours. And it is. I think it is. It's about 3 hours, maybe an hour and a half. But my favorite ferry, which I've done over 10 times, is the ferry between England and the Netherlands. It's a night ferry. And
so it's so long.
Yeah, but I never did it for a car. I always went on my bike. So I would ride my bike to the ferry and then get off the ferry on my bike. And I would do this with friends.
That's a real Netherlands thing to do.
So wait, if you say it's amazing. A night ferry, so you have to spend the night on a ferry, like in the open
cabin.
air. Oh, they're all like cabins.
They have cabins, yeah. I mean, small cabins, but nonetheless, they're comfortable. They have a shower and a loo and everything. They're really good.
Sounds expensive.
It's £70, I believe.
So it's like it can be 3 times more expensive than taking, a low-cost airline.
Yeah, but if you're carrying your bike,
fair enough. Fair enough.
Then it's fine. Yeah.
Wow. I remember I talked to a friend of mine who's French, and I'm like, oh yeah, the English Channel. He's like, this is not what it's called. It's La Manche.
Oh yeah, no.
So offended.
Yeah.
So offended.
The sleeve.
Right.
It's my channel.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
So ferries.
Ma Chanel. Excuse me, fella there. That's Ma Chanel. Right, you're talking about.
It's my munch.
Mama.
So, Gary, have you ever taken any kind of water transport, like a ferry?
I have. I've some ferries. They're mainly from Tallinn to Helsinki.
Cool.
How long was it?
It's maybe 3-4 hours. I don't even remember. It's fairly long. And then I did one overnight, which was from Tallinn to Stockholm, and that was with the berth and like you were describing. Yeah. And that was nice, but I spent a long day on one. I think it was from Stockholm back to Tallinn, but it was during the day, and I had the biggest culture shock of my entire life on this ferry.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
It was all these Scandinavian German burgers. Do you know what a burger? B-U-R-G-H-E-R. It's
neighbors.
Yeah, G-H-E-R. They're like they're like sort of prosperous, well-fed people, you know what I mean? And speaking these Scandinavian languages that I had no idea. And it just, I felt so out of place. And it was such a long, it's a weird place to have major culture shock. You know, you're just on a ferry, it's just from here to there, but it was like, gosh, I mean, because you could just see everything that, you know, like 19th century literature about that certain class of people and, you know, how they're well set and they're satisfied and, you know, all of this. And anyway, it was like
I've only taken ferry, but, you know, it's not like a place with cabins, but it's the one you use to go from one bank to another by car. Well, I mean, you get on a ferry in a car, then you either sit in a car or you just get out immediately and you can't get in because, you know, they're so close to each other. Yeah. It was from one bank of Lena River to the other in Yakutia because there's no way, you know, to get to the other side. Yeah. And then, so when you send anything to Yakutia, let's say, you know, a parcel, a package, so we do that to our relatives. So in the summer, it's, you know, trains and then ferry and then some kind of, you know, like trucks maybe. But in the spring and in the fall, it's only planes, which is 2 or 3 times more expensive because the river's not, you know, fully frozen yet, so transport cannot get over it. But in winter, it's just trucks going on the river because the ice is so thick.
So hard, yeah.
So it's like, I think it's like more than 2 meters. Like, you know, that's the ice. So it can, all the trucks, you know, the Kamaz, they just go and go and go.
Cool.
That's all right, yeah. But yeah, I remember the first time I did that, I was like, adventure on a ferry. Because, you know, not that I often saw water transport in Yakutia. I mean, there are ferries, but cargo ferries that go along the river, you know, to get to some remote areas. So in the summer, and then these areas are impossible to reach during the fall and during the spring. Yeah, but what about cruises? Have you ever taken a cruise?
No.
Do you want to?
No. I mean, I'm not against it.
What I don't love about cruise ships, and the cruise idea is that they make these gigantic, I mean, colossal ships, and then they bring them into, like, can you bring a ship into Florence? Do they have a port?
I think they do.
Florence is a bit further inland, though.
Okay, that's why I didn't want to. I didn't want to sound ignorant. Yeah, so
Pisa. Yeah,
I mean, just these,
Genoa,
you know, like these continental cities that
yeah.
have these, you know, just these colossal ships, and, you know, probably just full of Tourons, you know.
Oh, you
tourists.
mean Venice, actually. You mean Venice.
Venice,
yeah, Venice talking about,
But, you know, these ancient cities that are fragile.
And then there's this
gigantic, gross thing full of tourists. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they're just going to come in and just do tourist stuff all over.
Yeah, I know that there are cruises they depart from Florida and they go.
Yeah, they go to the Caribbean.
The Caribbean, yeah.
And there, maybe it's okay. Maybe it helps the people there, you know, the economy and all that, which it does in Venice as well. But it, you know, it's still, it leaves it mostly intact there, I think. But, you know, when they come into the...
But technically, you know, when you are on a cruise ship, like the cruise liner, all you can see is the ocean. So I don't see maybe the beauty in it. Maybe, you know, it's just water. For like several days, all you see is water. Yeah. And it's also scary because, you know, should anything happen, you're dead.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's down there.
Weird things can happen there too. But they you know, I think the thing there is that there's activities and you know, there's super food. It's like Vegas, I think.
Yeah, it's like Vegas on the sea, yeah.
Yeah. It's just sort of this gross, you know, also gross, you know, of just, you know, constant gigantic feed and entertainment and it's just.
Yeah, the one time we took a ship with my family. We were going to the Lena Pillars. Have you ever heard about that? It's a UNESCO heritage site. It's nature. It's like huge cliffs and rocks, and it's all natural. So it's beautiful, which is actually now unfortunately on fire because of the forest fires in Yakutia. But the thing is that you can't really get there by car because, it's on an island, and it's river everywhere. So we took a ship. It took like 12 hours to get there because it's really slow as well. And there was some kind of, entertainment activities on board. And we're like,
oh, geez.
Just take us to the place. We spent
that could be the equivalent of my trip from Stockholm to Tallinn with all Scandinavian.
But I think in general, if we compare air transport and water transport tends to be used differently. It's mostly for like cargo and taking things, the goods from A to B. Whereas air travel is more like for people. Let's say, for travel. So yeah, water transport is not really that fast and efficient maybe for just traveling.
I guess they have, I believe they're called catamarans, which are kind of like hovercraft.
Yeah,
I
did an airfoil. There's an airfoil is a type of a boat, right? But it actually raises up above the water. I did that from Gibraltar.
Oh, cool! In Spain.
Yeah.
Well, it's the UK. Yeah. It's our place, but
it's our place.
Not Chanel.
Yeah.
Right.
It
sounds very colonial.
Yeah. Notre Chanel, as we say. But anyway, it goes to Morocco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was still just kind of water travel,
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It was cool. Yeah.
Water is scary.
Yeah, if you think about it. Of course, air travel. If you think about air travel for over much.
I mean, what about air travel? You know
what I mean?
The ground is down there, you see the clouds, everything is okay. But the water, if you go, nobody knows what's deep down there. Like how deep is it really? What's down there? Because there's only, a limited amount of things that scientists can do.
Yeah, Lake Baikal is fascinating.
You know how there are profiles, oh God, I wish I remember the name of the profile on Instagram, of fishermen in not far from Murmansk. And sometimes they post creatures that got, into the nest together with fish. And they're like, we have no clue what that is, but it looks scary. And, things like with too many teeth and no eyes. And they're like,
Yeah, it's down there. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if if all these stories about Cthulhu are really true and it's somewhere down there. You never know. You can't know. Can't be sure. So
we don't want to find out.
We don't. We
do not want to find out.
So speaking of water transport, what do you think about the plan to launch Titanic 2 in 2022?
I have not heard about this.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's set to sail in 2022. It's being recreated. Like it's being built identical to the first one.
Of course it is.
So cool.
So it's going to be like a total replica ship.
No, it is really cool. Was it the White Star Line is the company that originally operated the Titanic? I believe that's what it was called, White Star Line.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the company that is, in charge of that
doing
now.
This? Is this like Carnival or something?
Well, I don't know about the company. I know that who is behind the project is Australian businessman and politician Clive Palmer. His name is. I wrote that down. So, and apparently it's going to hold 2,400 passengers, 900 crew members, and it will travel from Dubai to Southampton before making the whole journey from Southampton to New York, right? It was to New York, yeah. So first they're going to have a trial journey from Dubai to see that everything's fine, it doesn't sink, and then they're going to take the initial route from Southampton to New York.
I guess there's going to be so many cringeworthy passengers doing the thing on the bow where Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. They should have a whole, photo zone for that.
Yeah, that's
guaranteed it'll be there. Yeah.
Additional 10.
Can you imagine on Instagram without? We no one near the mast or whatever, not the mast, whatever they call that thing, the hull. Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Yes, nobody.
Additional 10 £10 fee for a photo zone in there. People are going to pay that.
Absolutely.
But they say.
Right. Yes. And cringe we will. In fact, we can even begin cringing right now, and it'll.
So, and the businessman behind this, he said, "Don't worry, we have plenty of lifeboats, and we'll have a welded and not riveted hull. And we'll have modern navigation and radar equipment. So don't worry, this one is not going to sink." But that's exactly what they said with the first one. Jeez.
Yeah.
They did.
Would you ever take it?
Yeah, of course, why not? I'd do it. I'd do it for the photo shoot.
For a photo shoot.
Just
You
to
know,
get
there's
up at
one.
that-
Do you know this?
Just do the Leonard DiCaprio thing. Yeah.
Ben, do you know that there's such a thing as Photoshop? So you don't have to pay like thousands of dollars to take the Titanic too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you have to learn Photoshop. That's the bad. That's the downside. Of course, you can probably find somebody in the Philippines or wherever to put.
You learn photo shoot and then you travel wherever you want. Space,
That's right.
Titanic.
Pay them $20
You name it.
and you're good. Yeah.
So as far as I understand,
wow.
none of us is a fan of water transport.
I mean, I'm fascinated by all transport, to be honest. I mean, yeah,
You're
why not?
adorable.
I love transport, yeah.
So next, just
trucks with wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me as a kid,
Oh.
yeah.
Gary,
Yeah.
you. So last time we did a podcast with Benjamin, I was like, "How was your weekend?" He's like, "I took a bus to Akademgradok. It was a posic. It was a real adventure."
Oh boy.
So just to understand how
boy,
much he loves
Ben, yeah.
transport.
Boy, you have to really love
Yes.
transport to go into ecstasies over riding in a Pazik. It's like, wow. Okay.
I loved it. I had to
And all
pass
the-
the change down to the driver
Oh,
about
yeah.
5-6
Well-
times, yeah.
Oh yeah. That's the beauty part is when you get somehow
Yeah,
up
in
there
hot
and
weather
I
as well.
hate that. Yeah, and you have to sit there and calculate and
Yeah.
I'll sit in the back.
Benjamin is going to take the električka today. So
Yes, I am.
Oh, have you not taken the electrička?
No, I haven't.
Oh my
First
goodness. Well, are you in for another treat? I like
adventure, another adventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to put the Pazik in the shadow. It'll all be all electrička all the time. When Pazik, nah. I've been on the
No,
electrička.
I can't
It's
wait.
interesting how you have such a passion for transport.
It is
It's
strange, but I
adorable.
love it, yeah.
Well, here in Novosibirsk, you have the opportunity to ride many different kinds of.
Have you taken the tram?
Yeah, many times, yeah. Love the tram, yeah.
Trolley? Well, I mean in Novosibirsk.
Yeah, I've done both the trolley. I've done the trolleybus and the tram. The trolley bus was so funny. I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'7", so what's that? 170 centimeters. And I got on this trolley bus, and there was this seat whereby the seat in front of me like squished my knees,
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
and I couldn't. I
It
just
sounds like
couldn't-
Pobeda, as well.
But I couldn't fathom how, if I were any taller, how anyone could sit in that seat. And then,
Suffering.
yeah, and as I was on this bus, it started shaking really violently,
man.
and it
You're
just,
getting the whole experience.
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
and it broke down. And
Oh,
it
it broke.
was-
And now you.
Well,
was
it's,
funny, yeah.
the full experience.
was-
Adventure with a capital A.
That's right. And a capital Z.
Wait, what about
all cap? Put that in all caps.
what about marshrutka? Have you ever taken?
Yeah, I've taken.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to.
So you can cross out everything off your list. So especially after
Marshrutka,
today.
yeah.
Yeah,
pretty-
you got no holes in your bucket.
They're pretty good in Novosibirsk. They're more modern. They're more modern in Novosibirsk.
Then where? If
Well,
I
then
may
in other
ask?
parts of the country, but
That could
Novosibirsk
be.
are pretty
It-
good.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, it was really funny because I mixed up the
Where did you go?
number
Where-
8 bus. So the number 8 bus, I mixed it up with the marshrutka, and I got the marshrutka, and the driver said he got to Zolotaya Niva, which is the metro station in here in Novosibirsk, and I said to him, I thought we were going to Akademgradok.
He's like, well,
He said, just get off my bus. We didn't say it like that, but it was essentially, wrong. But
wow, you are indeed having
So
adventures.
you took the bus. You took a Pazik from Rečni Vokzal to
it
Akademia.
was actually from the train station. Yeah, from the.
Oh, you got the whole pleasure.
So I got the and then when I was at the train station, I went to the loo quickly and I had these shoes which didn't have very good soles, and I slipped over.
Oh no!
I could just tell this security guard, who normally has a very serious face, he just started smiling.
I mean, did you go down? Did you go down? You fell?
Yeah, I slipped. It was a majestic fall.
Majestic fall.
Okay.
It was a big fall.
Oh my goodness.
Ben was having out of body experience.
Yeah.
That's how you make, all these serious gods smile.
I won't be surprised if I end up on some compilation video in the future.
right.
Please don't.
From the surveillance videos, I think the restrooms at the train station can be pretty rough still.
Oh yeah.
Were they rough?
Well, to be honest, the one at the Centralny, it was okay, but it was the I had. Did I tell you my horror story? Actually, it's kind of graphic. I don't want to go into too much detail, but yeah.
After the podcast,
Ben, go into the detail.
After the podcast,
I'll just say the location was
Apsheronsk
in Krasnodarsky Krai. And
doesn't even
worst toilet ever.
In
a bus station.
As somebody who took a car trip
station,
from Yakutsk to Novosibirsk, I can imagine what you're talking about. Wait, quick question.
Yeah.
But you have not taken a bus, between cities?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
You have? From where to where?
I went from Novosibirsk to this place called Galibstadt.
Oh yeah, the German village.
Yeah. So that was 8.5 hours.
Have you taken the train?
No, I really want to. I can't wait to eventually do the
train is
Trans-Siberian.
Yeah.
I mean, you can start small, with trip to Barnaul. I have no idea why you would want to go there. Krasnoyarsk, it's a cool place.
Yeah, no, I know there's a monument there to the 10 ruble note. If you know about this, because they're phasing out the 10
not
ruble
the
notes.
not the monument to the 10 ruble note, but the monument that is on the 10 ruble banknote.
No. There's a
really?
monument to it because they're phasing out the 10 ruble banknotes, and Krasnoyarsk
This is the lesser known.
Krasnoyarsk is on the 10 ruble banknote, and there's now a monument to the 10 ruble banknote.
Oh wow!
Which you can check out.
I see. So they're going to do away with the 10 ruble.
Yeah, it's only coins now.
I mean, when was the last time you saw that?
Yeah, true.
I mean, I have had a couple. Sometimes I've been given a 10 ruble note and change, but they're being phased out.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
So that's the thing to see in Krasnoyarsk is the 10 ruble banknote.
You gotta go there while it's still warm, because there is a place which is like a national park over there, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah. All righty. Wow, we have a real transport expert and nerd over here.
Yes, we do.
So all right. So
maybe part 3.
Part 3.
Yes.
What else are you going to talk about on part 3, Benjamin? About elektrichkas?
Oh god, just everything. Maybe bicycles.
Bicycles.
Maybe
bicycles, scooters.
Yeah. Samakati, that could be a whole, or electric scooters could be a whole podcast. Yeah.
With you, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for this amazing podcast. So today we discussed transport part 2, and we mainly focused on airplanes and a little bit about water transport. So dear listeners, thank you for being here with us. And remember, if you struggle to understand our conversation, you are always welcome to our website, which is
www.bigappleschool.com/podcast.
Woo! You did that. Wow.
I've been practicing.
That shows.
Weeks and weeks and weeks. Every day. Morning.
That shows Gary.
Right.
A round of applause for Gary, please.
Okay.
So on their website, you can find full scripts of each episode, and you can read it while listening, so it can really help you to understand every single thing we say. Also, if you want to get more content which will help you learn English, you can follow us on the social media such as Instagram, VK, YouTube, Telegram, and so on. Just search our name, which is Big Apple School. So that was Katya, and my guests for today were
Gary
and
Benjamin,
aka Transport Nerd. Thank you. So stay tuned, and we'll see you around.